This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we have a great Power Pundit panel as always. Robert Eidhoven is here, the political consultant with J3 Strategies, and among the many campaigns he runs is Sue Loudon's. We also have Anjanette Damon, political reporter for the Reno Gazette-Journal, Mike Bosma with the Bosma Group, and Ernie Adler, former state senator. Welcome to all of you.
Good to be here.
Your response to Joe Sandoval?
You know, I think it's good that he's getting out here and getting on your show and answering the questions. He's got to define himself and separate himself from Governor Gibbons. And it's a pretty volatile Republican primary electorate out there. They're a lot more angry in this election cycle than they were in '06 when Gibbons was going through his own primary, where he was taking on a challenge from his right in Bob Beers. This is a different climate.
You know, it's interesting as you look around the country, the incumbents are just dumping out like crazy. But we have this situation here in Nevada where you have a strong right-wing base, a no new taxes base. How difficult is it going to be for Judge Sandoval to be able to get past that in the primary?
Well, I don't know that that strong no new taxes base has necessarily been proven. I mean, Governor Gibbons...
I mean in the primary in June.
Well, sure, that's a message that appeals to that, but you also have a pretty fractured base with these different constituencies that are kind of competing for the Republican Party and for kind of control of the establishment. There's really no establishment. I don't know if Robert would disagree with me there. But yeah, he's still finding his voice, Brian Sandoval is. He's still new on the campaign trail. He spent his early months just focusing on fundraising, getting up to speed on the issues. Now he's going out there and finding his voice. He's talked about vouchers. It's going to be hard to match Governor Gibbons on the no new taxes line. But it'll be interesting to see him find his voice.
You know, the idea that going into the next biennium that we could have a 50% deficit is just stunning.
And that's why I'm really surprised that Judge Sandoval really didn't focus on the solution. I'll give me 30 days and I'll come up with a budget, I think isn't going to resonate. I think whoever's voted in governor is going to have a significant plan, and I think that's going to be almost a referendum. Running on that platform, it's going to be painful. At some juncture, it's not just going to be, well, we'll tax somebody else, not me. It's going to be they're going to have a platform to run on and then enact the platform.
You know, we saw the legislature take over the whole budgetary process in the last session. Doesn't that give even more power to the idea that you've got to have a plan well in advance of the election?
Well, I think so. You wonder whether some of these people took high school math, because, I mean, there's no way that you can solve this problem without redoing the tax system in Nevada. And somebody needs to step forward and say, I've got a plan, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. I mean, they need to just stop with this illusion that you can not raise taxes, that you can cut everything back to below the bare bone and still have a successful state. So I think they need to wake up and fix the problem, not...
I think Robert might disagree.
Well, I mean, if the revenue's not there, it's not there. You know, there is no, everyone talks about this magical tax structure. What is it? California's? New Jersey? New York?
There's several things you could do. You could do a sales tax on services. There's other things that they could go with that would be a fair tax system.
We have a tax structure that provided 20% government growth for about, I don't know, 10 of the last 12 biennium. I mean, 20% growth in spending. That's what that tax structure provided. And what do? They spent it. So when you grow government by 15% and 17% and 20%, you're going to have a problem when there's a recession. Now, I don't think, you know, obviously relying on tourism is going to hurt us in trying to get out of it, because we need the rest of the country to make money first, so they'll spend it coming here. So I understand that point. But the idea that there's this magical tax structure that works and is recession-proof, it doesn't exist.
What did you think of Judge Sandoval saying that Governor Gwynn is his campaign chairman when Governor Gwynn raised taxes by such a large amount in the 2003 cycle?
Well, yeah, that's going to be something that will be interesting to see if his opponents really hang on him. It is interesting to note also that Governor Gwynn went out of office still fairly popular. I mean, he took some hits, but he came back, did the rebate, which everybody now is saying, oh, why'd you rebate all that money? We're in this awful hole. But Gwynn came out still fairly popular. He's a likable figure. It depends on how much money, one, that Governor Gibbons and Mike Montanan can raise to really get a message out there that hooks perhaps Brian Sandoval to Kenny Gwynn's tax increase or any of the other policies that might really be anathema to primary voters in the Republican primary.
One of the things about a new tax situation is that couldn't happen fast enough to save us in the next biennium. It would have to be doing something with taxes we currently have, correct?
Yes, but there's some fixes that they can do, some short-term fixes. Some of the recommendations that the SAGE report came out, I'm really surprised Judge Sandoval didn't hit on that, that just make a lot of sense. You know, there's some things about depreciation for property taxes that are fairly easy fixes that actually spread revenue out evenly and fairly, that I think that's where really they're going to get to as far as from an issue perspective, coming up with those types of platforms, because that's where Governor Gwynn was very, very successful in saying, you know, it's going to be painful, but we're in this together, let's get consensus and move forward. And he didn't fall on the sword for it.
And you get the last 10 seconds here.
Well, I just think the system needs to be re-examined, and if we don't, we're going to pay a big price in the future.
And that's where we have to leave it. We thank you all. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this timeout.
If you have back pain, arthritis.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. On our next broadcast, Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley will have something to say about everything right here. We'll see you then.